To France now, and this year's race for the Elysee looks like déjà vu. Voters narrowed down their presidential candidates, and the finalists are incumbent President Emmanuel Macron and his far-right rival Marine Le Pen. France's Interior Ministry reports that the current president won about 27% of Sunday's first round of voting, putting him in first place in a crowded field of a dozen candidates. Le Pen is in second place with around 23%. The second round of voting in 2 weeks is set to be a rematch of the 2017 election. After the polls closed, the centrist Macron made his pitch, while the far-right Le Pen made appeals to the mainstream.
I want a France which inscribes itself in a strong Europe, which continues to form alliances with great democracies to defend itself. Not a France that exited from Europe would have for its only allies the international populists and xenophobes. That's not us.
The French people have spoken and gave me the honor to be qualified in the second round against the incumbent president Emmanuel Macron. Let me express to the millions of voters who expressed their trust in me my sincerest gratitude. I acknowledge with humility all the responsibility that comes with it.
This year's election saw significant abstentions, with voter participation falling to a 2-decade low for a first-round vote. As CNN's Paula Newton reports, the question now is whether the candidates can inspire those non-voters to show up for the second final round.
Sunday in Paris. For many French people, it was a laissez-faire kind of day, to lounge by the Seine or enjoy a drink at a cafe. But there was one activity many people around the country decided to skip: voting in the first round of the country's presidential elections. The candidates voted, 12 were in the running, but turnout for the rest of the country was less impressive. A French polling group estimates less than 75% of voters cast their ballots, which would be the lowest turnout for a first-round vote in 20 years. Some voters say they just couldn't relate to any of the candidates or their policies.
No one who represents me. I think they are disconnected, and I think France is tired of this.
And for those who did vote, some say it boiled down to a choice between consistency and change. This woman says she voted for incumbent President Emmanuel Macron.
I'm relatively satisfied with what he's done up to now. We're never 100% happy, but I think he's done a lot of good things.
Macron's high-profile role as a mediator between Russia and Ukraine was a plus for some of his supporters.
We really need to have somebody who is well positioned in the international landscape, in the international discussions.
But this woman says she wasn't satisfied with how the government handled the COVID-19 pandemic.
It is very important for me to vote because we want change. I want change because it has been 2 very difficult years.
Other issues like immigration and identity were major platforms for far-right candidates like Marine Le Pen, and hit home with some voters.
With all these immigrants who come, France is now no longer us, it's them.
Others say it wasn't so much the issues that brought them out as much as it was their duty.
Because there's too much people that fought for us to have the right to vote. So what does it take to wake up a little earlier, to vote on time, and express one's opinion?
Exit polls show Macron and Le Pen will head to the second round of voting in 2 weeks. To have a shot at victory, both will need to convince the people who didn't show up Sunday to not only vote on April 24th, but to vote for them. Paula Newton, CNN.
And I'd like to bring in Stephen Erlanger now. He is the chief diplomatic correspondent for the New York Times and joins us live from Brussels, Belgium. Thank you so much for being with us.
Morning.
So preliminary results show President Emmanuel Macron in first place with about 27%, just ahead of far-right politician Marine Le Pen at around 23%. Given what we know about the other 10 candidates and their supporters, particularly Jean-Luc Mélenchon, who do you think will likely win the April 24th runoff, Macron or Le Pen?
Well, I think it will be Macron. After all, this time he won almost twice as much of a larger percentage over Le Pen than he did 5 years ago in the first round. And the first round, as much as he's detested by many, many French, he won more first-round votes than any candidate since François Mitterrand, which was quite a long time ago. So I think he's okay. But what's happened in France is pretty shocking, because more than 50% of voters voted for the extreme right or the extreme left. That's a majority of voters. And so I think the debate in France, which has been fairly ugly during this campaign, should lead to some soul searching. The main old parties of the center right and center left have essentially disappeared. And so you have Mélenchon doing very well. He won roughly the same vote 5 years ago, a bit more this time, but the center right has completely disappeared. Macron has become, to some degree, the candidate of the center right, but he's quite unpopular. Right. I think he'll win. I think it'll be very close. Marine Le Pen has wrapped herself in nice words and her cats. She's become a cat breeder. Everybody loves that. She's softened her image, but I think the French will still have a very hard time forgetting what her party really stands for.
Right. So how critical then is veteran leftist politician Jean-Luc Mélenchon in this upcoming runoff, and how will he likely advise his supporters to vote, given he received 22% of the vote? That's just 1 percentage point behind Le Pen.
Well, Mélenchon is a very interesting case because he's very, very smart and very articulate. He gives wonderful speeches, and he is, in a way, a man of the old left. But he has taken over from the socialists and the far left. But what he's told his supporters overnight is, do not vote for Marine Le Pen. What he hasn't said to them, certainly not yet, is vote for Emmanuel Macron. And the biggest risk to Macron is that Mélenchon voters and other angry voters, this 51%, will either vote for Le Pen or stay home and abstain. And that is Macron's biggest vulnerability, it seems to me.
And Stephen, why do you think French voters are so polarised, with nearly a quarter of the country selecting a far-right candidate who represents the absolute opposite of what the EU stands for? And why was voter turnout so very low?
Well, it's low in French terms. It's pretty high in American terms, I have to say. But I think people are angry and they're tired, and there's COVID and there's a war, and you have in Emmanuel Macron a very distant figure. Everyone knows he's very, very smart, but he seems disdainful of ordinary people. That's his image. He's sort of considered a man of the elite, of the rich, and as someone who campaigned 5 years ago as being neither left nor right, most French have decided that he is a man of the right, but the center right. But people are, I mean, the French tend to be grumpy anyway, I have to say, but they express their grumpiness in the first round in a very explicit way. In the second round, they tend to think more about France's place in the world and how important it is and their role in Europe and in NATO. And I suspect that will eke this very unpopular Emmanuel Macron through to a second round victory.
All right, we'll see what happens on April 24th. Stephen Erlanger, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your perspective. Appreciate it.